The autumn wind howled through the skeletal trees, carrying the scent of damp earth and decay as Ethan Cole trudged along the dirt path toward the old Haverford mansion. The sky was a bruised purple, heavy with the promise of rain, and Ethan's work boots crunched against the gravel, each step a reminder of the long day he'd spent fixing pipes at the local high school. At 38, Ethan was a man worn by life's edges, a broad-shouldered but slightly stooped, with calloused hands on a face etched with lines that told stories of loss and quiet resilience. His dark hair was streaked with early gray, and his hazel eyes held a flicker of hope that refused to die. No matter how many times life tried to snuff it out, he was a single dad to his 10-year-old daughter, Lily, and in the small town of Willow Creek, that was enough to make him a target for whispers and sidelong glances. "Poor Ethan," they'd say at the diner, raising that girl alone after Sarah left, always sticking his nose where it doesn't belong. But Ethan didn't care much for the pity. He cared about keeping a roof over Lily's head, food on the table, and her smile intact. That was why he was out here, miles from town, heading toward the place most folks avoided like the plague. The Haverford mansion loomed ahead, its silhouette jagged against the twilight. Once a grand estate owned by a reclusive millionaire, it had been abandoned for decades, its ivy-choked walls and boarded windows a breeding ground for ghost stories. Kids dared each other to sneak onto the property, but no one stayed long. The mansion had a reputation of whispers of strange noises, flickering lights, and a history no one could quite pin down. Ethan wasn't here for thrills, though. He was here because of a phone call he'd gotten that morning from Mrs. Delaney, the town's nosiest librarian. "There's someone at the old mansion," she'd said, her voice trembling with a mix of fear and excitement. "A man, maybe a vagrant, but he'll could a broken bar military. I saw him from the road." "You're good with people, Ethan. Maybe you can check on him?" Ethan had sighed, knowing the town would gossip either way if he went. They'd call him a fool if he didn't. They'd say he was heartless. But something in Mrs. Delaney's voice, a tremor of genuine concern, had stuck with him. So here he was, carrying a thermos of coffee and a sandwich wrapped in foil, hoping to offer a small kindness to someone who might need it. The mansion's iron gates were rusted, hanging crooked on their hinges. Ethan pushed them open with a creak that echoed like a warning. The gravel path to the front door was overgrown with weeds, and the air felt heavier here, as if the house itself was holding its breath. He knocked on the warped wooden door, the sound swallowed by the vast emptiness of the estate. No answer. He knocked again, louder, and called out, "Hello? Anyone here? I'm Ethan, from town. Just want to make sure you're okay." Silence. Then, a faint shuffle from inside, like boots scuffing against wood. The door creaked open, revealing a man who looked like he'd been carved from the shadows themselves. He was tall, lean, with a face weathered by more than just time. His eyes were sharp but hollow, and his camouflage jacket was frayed at the cuffs. A faded army patch clung to his shoulder, and a duffel bag sat at his feet, as if he'd been ready to bolt. "What do you want?" the man asked, his voice rough but not unkind. Ethan held up the thermos and sandwich, offering a small smile. "Heard someone was out here. Thought you might be hungry." "I'm Ethan Cole." The man's eyes narrowed, scanning Ethan like he was searching for a trap. Finally, he stepped back, letting the door open wider. "Name's Marcus. Don't need your pity." Ethan shook his head. "Not pity, just food, and maybe some company, if you're up for it." Marcus hesitated, then nodded, gesturing for Ethan to come inside. The foyer was a ruin appealing wallpaper, a chandelier dangling like a broken promise, and dust so thick it coated the air. Ethan followed Marcus to a corner where a small fire flickered in a makeshift pit, surrounded by a sleeping bag and a few scattered belongings. They sat, and Ethan handed over the sandwich, watching as Marcus ate in careful, measured bites, like someone who'd gone too long without. Marcus didn't say much at first, but the coffee loosened his tongue. He was a veteran, he said, back from a tour in Afghanistan years ago. He'd been drifting ever since, unable to settle, haunted by memories he didn't share. "People don't get it," he said, staring into the fire. "They thank you for your service, then turn away when you're not the hero they want you to be." Ethan nodded, understanding more than he let on. He knew what it was like to be seen as less than what people expect. He'd a failed husband, a struggling dad, a man who couldn't keep his family together. They talked for hours, the mansion's eerie quiet wrapping around them like a cocoon. Marcus spoke of his time overseas, of comrades lost, of a world that felt alien now. Ethan shared stories of Lily, her love for drawing, her stubborn streak, and the way she kept him going. By the time the fire died down, something had shifted, a fragile trust, a spark of connection between two men the world had tried to break. The next morning, Ethan returned to town, his heart lighter but his mind heavy with Marcus's story. He didn't expect the news to spread, but Willow Creek was small, and gossip was its lifeblood. By noon, the diner was buzzing. "Ethan's out there playing hero to some drifter," sneered Tom Haskell, the town's self-appointed know-it-all, as he sipped his coffee. "Probably a common squatting in that death trap of a mansion." Others chimed in, their laughter sharp and mocking. "Ethan's always been soft," said Mary Klein, who ran the hardware store. "He'll get himself robbed or worse." Even Lily heard the whispers at school, kids teasing her about her dad's new hobo friend. Ethan ignored them, but the barbs stung. He kept going back to the mansion, bringing food, blankets, and once, a sketch pad for Marcus, who'd mentioned a love for drawing as a kid. Each visit deepened their bond, and Ethan began to see the mansion differently, and not as a ruin, but as a place that held stories, just like Marcus did. One evening, as they sat by the fire, Marcus pointed to a faded mural on the wall, a sprawling tree with names carved into its branches. "Found this yesterday," he said, his voice low. "Looks like a family tree, but it's a broken bar strange. Some names are scratched out, like someone didn't want them remembered." Ethan traced the lines, noticing dates that stretched back to the 1800s. One name, Abigail Haverford, was circled in faint